Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to Theory of Literatures. Glad to meet you back. Today, we would like to discuss another theory of literature. It is eco-criticisms. Yeah, eco here means ecology or environment. So, eco-criticism here is a kind of study that relate between literature and the environments. How literary works represents or reflects the environment. Yeah, we'll focus on the background of eco-criticisms, the key concept, the theory, and the stage of analysis in the eco-criticisms. Okay, now let's go from the background. The background of eco-criticism is the relations unhealthy relationship between the nature and the culture in the era of capitalisms. Okay, why is it the capitalisms? Because capitalism here brings the damage in environments. As you know, that capitalism here is a kind of ideology in economic that wants to get more profits, more and more profits by exploiting the nature. Yeah, so because of this ideology of accumulating the profit, uh, they exploit the nature, yeah, in the names of development and modernizations. They are not they don't want to be called as the destroyer. No, they will call themselves as the developer, as the bring the modernization, although it is just their excuses. Now, this capitalism's actions creates the environmental hazards such as deforestation, landslide, floods, plastic waste everywhere in the land or in the oceans. As you can see, lots of company that cut down the forest to sell the woods. Yeah, it make the landslide in a couple areas of Indonesia, creates the floods because no trees can absorb the uh, water from the rains, etc. So it creates the floods. So these kinds of environmental damage create what we call as an ecocide. Eco here, ecology, environment, side here from the word suicide. In other words, we can say the ecological death or the environmental total damage. Okay. So that's why the eco-criticism appear. The aim of eco-criticism here is to raise the consciousness, to change the people view and practice about the nature. So eco-criticism wants people to see the nature in a different way and to develop the nature in a different way, in a wise way, better than capitalism does. And from that, the focus of eco-criticism is the material context of industrializations, how the industrializations creates the damage on the environments, and then the development, the capitalist developments creates the destructions in the nature, create the pollutions, and all the ecocides that represented in the text. Okay. So now we go to the key concept related to eco-criticism and literature. Eco-criticism sees the cultural context, cultural texts, including literary works, news, media, yeah, construct a particular notion or idea of nature, which then give effects on the material practice. So in other words, that literary works and other cultural texts reflects, tell about the nature, yeah, and it's also construct, yeah, the way people sees about the natures. So literary works not just reflect, not just tell about the nature, it's also construct, yeah, construct the people understanding, shapes their views about how to treat the nature, how is the nature. So in other words too, we can see how people view on the nature, how people treat the nature. We can find that in literary works, yeah, or in other cultural texts, such as in poems, in prose, drama, or in the films. Now, as a text, as we have discussed in the previous meetings, text is made of binary opposition. Yeah? Here, the texts on environments are made up of binary oppositions between the culture and nature. And unfortunately, as we had talked before, that binary oppositions tend to be unjust, tends to give privilege to one side while marginalize the other, tends to see that one side is more important than the other side. Okay, so here the culture versus the nation, the nature, and culture here have a privilege than the nature. Yeah, between the reasons and consciousness and things, culture as a reason, as a consciousness, versus the nature as a things, yeah, culture as a subject, yeah, versus the nature as the object, yeah, culture as a capitalism versus the nature as the socio and eco life, culture as a man, yeah, versus the nature as a woman, yeah. So all we have in the rights, in the left side, the culture, reason, subject, capitalism, man, and here given privilege than the nature. So sometimes they make operations, or they make an exploitations on the nature. Okay, next. Now it creates the philosophy of deep ecology, yeah, to avoid the exploitations made by the binary oppositions when seeing other is important than the and then the other side. So philosophy of deep ecology here do the opposite. According to them, the between culture and nature there are the interconnectedness, okay, interconnectedness of a nature and culture, of a life form and the natural features. And then they propose the idea of eco or biocentrism, yeah, instead of anthropocentrism. Anthropocentrism here is seeing human as a center, seeing human as the center of the universe, and seeing the nature as the servants for humans' needs. Okay, so that's why, because human sees himself as the center and the nature is the servants, yeah, for their needs. Sometimes humans don't think twice exploiting the nature. So it is bad according to deep ecology. Anthropocentrism is bad. So we have to propose another philosophy. It called as eco or biocentrism. So human is not the center of the universe. Human as a part of the nature. Yeah, as Charles Darwin have ever said that human is part of animal. It means that human is part of the nature, just like an animal, just like a plant. Okay, so human is not the center. Okay, by seeing the human as the integral part of the nature, and of course it's interdependent. Humans need the animals, animals need the humans, humans need plants, plants also need the humans, etc. It's interdependent, so there will be a justice relationship between the humans and the environment. Another theory that talks about the eco-criticism is the Marxism. In Marxism sees that environmental damage is caused by the capitalisms, because capitalisms tend to be greedy, serakah, yeah? Greedy. They want to get more and more benefit without considering the environmental damage. They don't see the real people's needs, they only see their profits. Okay, they don't see the environmental needs, they only think about the profits. They don't think about the humans the human survive or the species survive the life of others. No, they only think about getting more and more profits. Here they see that nature is as commodity. Yeah, they see that a forest as a source of money. They can sell the woods to get more profits, for example, like that. And then they, in Marxism, said too that the social structure and inequality here is also related to the destructions of environment. For examples, the capitalists have the company, they cut down the forest, get the money, get the profit, but but the villagers around the forest will be the victims of natural disaster, of flood or landslide. Landslide, not the capitalists. The capitalists get the profit, but other people, the villagers, the lower class, they get the disaster. Okay. Next, the theory of apocalypse. Apocalypticism here sees that human technology leads to the doom. So the source of environmental damage is human technology. You can find it in the representation in many novels such as Populations Bombs, Environmental Imagination, or Silent Spring, or in the film you can watch Terminators, you can watch Resident Evils. Those kinds of apocalyptic films says the same things, that human technology creates the environmental damage. Another theory is the third world environmentalist. In the third world environmentalist sees that environmental damage cannot be separated from the poverty. From the poverty. So when we talk about the conserving the nature, when we want to talk about saving the nature, we also have to focus on the humans living there. For example, when Indonesians wants to say to save the forest in Kalimantan, Indonesian's government have to pay attention to on the suku anak dalam, right? We cannot expel or get rid of suku anak dalam from the forest in the name of conservation. No, while sometimes we are on the side of a capitalist. So that is the third world environmentalist that sees that environmental conservation have to focus also on the rights of others, on the social justice. Next, the ecofeminisms. In ecofeminism, environmental damage is caused by the patriarchal society. Maybe you still remember about feminism. According to ecofeminism, patriarchal societies' values and beliefs have resulted in the oppressions of both women and nature. So it is not only the woman as the victim of patriarchy, but also the nature, because women and nature share the same things. Because in patriarchal society, nature and women are sees the same. So the binary opposition between masculine culture and feminine nature can be seen here. Masculine as possessions of a mind, objective, rational, public, while the feminines or women as a body, subjective, emotional, and the private. So because nature is sees the same as the women's, a man or patriarchal society here tends to dominate the women's and nature. And because of these dominations, they exploit not just women, oppress not just women, but also the nature. Okay, and the patriarchal society here assume and act as though both human and nature are to be exploited by the man. Okay, so once again, in ecofeminism, sees that the source of destructions of environment is patriarchal society, because patriarchal society not just oppress the women but also oppress the nature. They sees nature as the same as the human. I'm sorry, nature the same as the woman. So they make oppressions. Okay, so next, we know that eco-criticism and literature here is about the links between literatures and nature, and it is multidiscipline. We call it also a literary ecology, because when we talk about the literature, we also talks about the environmental knowledge, about the social justice knowledge, about the feminisms, about the gender, etc. Yeah. So it is what we call as a multidiscipline. And then from the explanations before, that eco-criticism is a kind of readings, yeah, that pay attention on the social inequalities, yeah, whether social inequalities here related to gender oppressions, just like in the feminism, or social inequalities here created by the environmental exploitation, such as in Marxism, yeah, and not just reading the text, but also after reads the text, yeah, it will turn into the praxis here means make the text as inspirations to take action, yeah, to take actions, yeah. For example, after you analyze certain texts about the environments, yeah, after that you plan an actions, to avoid the environmental destructions, whether in the action is in form of teaching the student about the danger of environmental damage, whether you become the activist, etc. So eco-criticism is not in form of the discourse, wacana, no, it is not only the discourse, not wacana, yeah, but also the praxis, but also action, yeah, not just thinking, but also act. Okay, so next, the stage of eco-criticism. There are three stages of eco-criticism. The first stage is the study of the nature of representation. So here you study about the representations of nature in the text. Yeah, we can call it as the intrinsic analysis. Yeah, for example, here you analyze about the stereotype or the representation of Alas Roban in the story of Baurakso, or Butoijo and Timun Mas, yeah, in the story of Timun Mas, etc. Okay, so you see the how the literary works represent or talks about the nature. The second, a recovery of nature writing text. Yeah, the second stage here, after you analyze the text, you make another text that is more eco-friendly. Yeah. For example, you had a text that didn't explain about nature, or the text that tell about the natural exploitation, yeah, that it can harms people's. You can change the text, yeah, into more eco-friendly text. Next, the third stage is you make a, this is more abstract because you create a concept, yeah, create a concept of theoretical concepts about how to read in a certain theory. Okay, so in other words, you create theory. Okay, so, this is the very important slide. The last slide is about good text for teachings. Yeah. So you as a teacher who have to teach student, yeah, it is good for you. It's better for you to choose the appropriate text that have a good explanation or representations on the environment. Okay, so you have to know what consider as a good text for teaching. First, the good text about environment is the text that tells about the integrations between human and non-human. Okay, so in this text, human is not privileged because human is integral part of the nature. Okay, so human interest is not privileged over everything else. Yeah. Next, the texts that show that human is as accountable to the environments. Find the texts that tell that human is accountable, human is responsible for the ecosystem, for the environmental damage. Don't don't give the student the text that says that tells that it is the natural disaster is not the responsible of human. No, no, don't take that text because that is bad. Next, the text that tell the environment as the process, not a static conditions. That environment is also a subject, not the object. Okay, why is it a subject? Because nature also give contributions to the human's life. Yeah, just like human life give contributions to the nature. Okay, so environments and the humans is also they all subject. Okay. Okay, that's all for this session. Thank you very much for your attention. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I'm sorry. We still have one more slide. It is the examples of analysis of representations in the first stage. Okay, so the example here is the analysis of representation of Roban jungle in Baurekso story. Okay, alas Roban, alas Roban in Baurekso story. Okay, so in this analysis, we try to find the representations of Baurekso as a human and Alas Roban here as the environment. Okay, so Alas Roban is represented as impenetrable by common people. Alas Roban is the mysterious place, is the strange place. Not all people can get into Alas Roban. No, it is frightening place, so only a chosen can go there. And then Alas Roban is represented as a dangerous place. It is a home of thousands of powerful spirit or jinns. And then jinn has their independency. They are independence. Yeah, they are independence of the humans. And then they have authority and they have power in the Alas Roban. The same like human has power in any other parts. So next, Sultan Agung. Yeah, and Sultan Agung here as the feudalistic power who wants to expand the land and productions by assigning Baurekso to open Alas Roban. In other words, in today's language, Sultan Agung here as a businessman, or as a government, as a government who wants to increase the productions of agriculture by opening the land for agriculture. In this case, the Alas Roban, and Baurekso is the commander, the general asked by Sultan Agung to open the Alas Roban. And here Baurekso, the same as other people, Baurekso in the first place cannot open the land in the Alas Roban. Yeah, Baurekso can open Alas Roban after he consults to the god. God here as the true creator or the owner of universe, of course the owner of alas robantu, of course the owner of jin, of course the owner of Baureksa himself through the lelaku, through the lelaku. So you can open the alas roban. Okay, from this representation I can make the models of relations between human and the nature. Here we have a three angels. In the three angels there are humans, in this case Baureksa and Sultan Agung, and other environmental aspects such as spirit, jinn, and things. Here is alas roban. Okay, they all part of the nature, and part of the nature between human, alas roban, and the thing or jinn. They all part of the nature, and they all submit to the God. Okay, so the exploitations of the nature cannot taken place, without the permissions of God. Okay, and God have the law not to exploit the nature, not to damage the nature. Okay, so that is the relationships between humans and environment, especially in Baureksa story, and it includes God as the possessor and the owner of the nature. So whether humans or jinn cannot exploit the nature, because according to God law, it is not allowed, or it is prohibited to exploit the law, the nature. Okay, that's all for today. Thank you very much for your listenings and attention. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.